Alright guys, welcome back to F1 News. Never a dull day in the Formula 1 world at the moment, with fresh allegations against the president of the FIA, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, to such an extent that apparently behind the scenes, Max Verstappen pushed back on Ben Sulayem's defense of Christian Horner at Red Bull over the last few days, once again adding fresh fuel to the fire on these big Verstappen to Mercedes rumours that do not seem to be going away anytime soon. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always. Gained almost like 1,000 subscribers yesterday, so can't thank you guys enough. This, by the way, we have lots of updates as well because it was so much chaos yesterday that there's a few things that we missed and we have to go through. This is the Qiddiya Grand Prix from 2028 and beyond, it seems. Confirmed today, as we can see. I probably pronounced that wrong, by the way. But here we go. Just a quick promo of the track, by the way. You don't get the full perception from this analysis, or from this screenshot, shall we say, on how steep this is going to be. I mean, what do we watch right there? Let me just show that for you guys again. This is the run into turn one. Think Kota turn one on steroids. I think the elevation of turn one at Kota is 40 meters. This is meant to be 70 meters in the air. And it's going to look spectacular, I'm sure of it. A 20-story high rise to the first turn. There's like an insane amount of elevation on this track. Of course, it's not going to be ready for some time. As we've seen by those promo videos, it's going to look unbelievable. And the belief is that Jeddah is going to be run until that's ready. However, there have been other rumours that Saudi Arabia actually wants two Grand Prix and would like to do Jeddah and Qiddiya, it seems. But yeah, this is what we know on the racing circuit so far. Of course, it's been designed by some top guys. It's going to be ready in a few years. It seems like it's going to continue to host at Jeddah until 2027. And then we're going to get this circuit, which of course is, well, these are some of the renders being drawn up. I'm sure the circuit might well be quite spectacular, but that's the latest update we have on that. Turkey as well are trying to get back on the calendar as well. The belief is that their kind of government, local government, effectively said, all right, we want this back at effectively any cost, because that is what it takes at the moment, especially because there were rumours a few days ago that Stefano Domenicali of Formula 1 management was basically saying there will be European Grand Prix rotations in future years because they can't really add more Grand Prix. So the conclusion is we'll add more Grand Prix for the money, but the European races might end up alternating years or something like that, as they used to do at Germany. But, you know, one year we might have Spa, one year we might not, and then we go back there the next year. That's kind of the current rumour about this. Few things to say on the cars as well. The belief is that Leclerc was losing 0.6 a lap at least based on his first 20 laps at Bahrain. The problem didn't go away, but I guess it became easier on certain tyre compounds, lighter fuel loads to manage the issue. So the belief is that he lost a lot of time during the Grand Prix, as of course we think Russell did based on his words. So people have kind of got into, right, how might this race have looked if Leclerc did lose 0.6 a lap for the first 20 laps of the race, and if Russell did lose 0.4 of a second, which he said that he did. This might have been the result, which is still a Verstappen domination masterclass, but it is a rather different result than what we actually got. So we'll see in Jeddah, I guess, whether the story of the season so far is set to continue. What is rather likely to continue is Alpine being a shambles, because they confirmed yesterday that Matt Harmon, their technical director, and Dirk de Beer are gone. This was rumoured right after the Grand Prix, that Alpine are a shambles, top guys are leaving, and it's now been confirmed by Alpine. Pretty impressive, right, to lose more top members of staff than there have been Grand Prix so far this season, right? You've got to respect it from Alpine, the absolute disaster that team is, given the resources they theoretically have. And apparently, they're looking at Mike Elliott to bring him into the team. Mike Elliott, of course, former Mercedes man, technical director, who was, okay, maybe not fired, but let go, parted ways after effectively failing the W14 transitionary concept. James Allison then made the return to that role. So Mike Elliott has moved on from that organisation, and apparently Alpine are looking to bring Mike Elliott into their iteration because, look, these numbers are ugly. Every team improved substantially year on year from Bahrain qualifying, apart from Alpine, who improved a 10th in an entire year, which is honestly impressive to be that bad. I will say, though, for Haas, it's kind of mind-blowing to me that Ai Komatsu was saying this car was going to be terrible. They were basically saying the entire time, yeah, we're going to be 10th in Bahrain, it ain't looking good. And maybe you can give Komatsu a lot of credit for this turnaround, but let's be honest, right, he's only been in the job a short amount of time. Maybe Steiner deserves some credit for this turnaround. I don't know. But whatever. They've put together a car which was 3 seconds a lap faster this year in Bahrain than last year. Like, it actually protects the tyres. And based on Ferrari's progress, they've actually made some serious strides. Haas were the 6th fastest team in race trim in Bahrain, actually really impressive. But of course, the cars don't break down nowadays, so you ain't getting points, even if you're the 6th fastest car as it presently stands. But let's dive into all of this drama that's happening behind the scenes. And I've got a few updates as well on the whole Verstappen to Mercedes rumour and why day by day, I think this is more likely. So just to catch you guys up to speed on all the context behind this, we know about the whole Christian Horner stuff at Red Bull. The belief is that Jos Verstappen wants Horner gone for whatever reason, and the current plan is that if Horner was to stay at Red Bull, then Jos Verstappen, Max Verstappen, Helmut Marko, possibly Adrian Newey are all going to be out of the team. So my feeling has been now for a little bit of time, although I'm just about to say that I've changed my mind on this, that why in the world would Red Bull decide that, you know what, Horner, you're our man. Sure, he's obviously done a phenomenal job for Red Bull over the last several years, but why would you choose Horner over losing like all of your top guys, right? It doesn't seem to make sense. But there might be some explanation today as to why this actually does make sense. There was this also spotted, which appears to be Jos Verstappen and Christian Horner going into it in the Red Bull hospitality in Bahrain. So, you know, make what you will of this, but it does seem to be those two having a bit of an argument here. Now, obviously, the drama between these two goes much further behind and much deeper than just this, but it's just something to note that was spotted this past weekend. But this was said by Joe Sauer today, and this backs up the rumour that the Italian press heard yesterday that Christian Horner effectively wants to buy, with the help of financiers, Red Bull technology, as in the Formula One team. He wants to own it separate from Red Bull. And this is why, despite the fact that I said the other day that I would be incredibly surprised if Horner survives the season at Red Bull, I've actually changed my mind now, and I think that if Horner was going to go, he probably would have gone already. Like, Oliver Mintzlaff wanted to get rid of him. The evidence seems to have been there, but the Thai side of Red Bull have backed him the entire time. Even with Ford pretty much saying they might be done with this 2026 deal if Horner doesn't go. The Thai side of the business that gets on very well with Horner, as I showed you guys at the start of the video, this picture with Horner and your man here who effectively owns the company, get along very well, these two guys. And it does not seem to me that they're going to change their mind on this. I think the Thai side are committed to Horner, and I felt like surely something, Jos Verstappen's pressure, Max Verstappen's pressure potentially, even pressure by the governing body, but we'll get into them in a second, and most certainly even Ford and other parties involved, was going to force the Thai side of the business to change their minds. That, of course, was Uvidya, by the way, which is the man that we saw in that picture just a second ago. But I genuinely think now that if they were going to do this, it would have already happened. So this is what Joe Sauer says. There have been rumours for a while that Red Bull's primary shareholder, Uvidya, who controls 51% of the shares, is considering taking the Red Bull technology group out of Red Bull GmbH empire and setting it up as an independent car company with Horner in charge and as a shareholder in the business. This honestly does make a lot of sense, as Joe Sauer says. Does an energy drinks company really need a car company effectively in a Formula One team under their primary domain? Or could they make it a separate entity outside of the main business, owned by other people, and then license out their name to that business? That, in the long term, probably makes the most sense. And I think this was inevitable. Dietrich Mateschitz passed away. He wasn't the absolute full owner, but he effectively had control of the business. And he was fully on board with the Formula One team in the way that it presently exists. Others at Red Bull, such as Uvidya, want to see the Formula One team for Red Bull take on a different role within the business, or just be spun off entirely. And now, all the power struggle happens behind the scenes. Uvidya, who owns 51%, at the end of the day, he calls the shots, not the Austrian side of Red Bull that owned 49%, with Oliver Mintzlaff, of course, being the CEO in charge of the whole thing. He doesn't really make the calls. And Uvidya and Horner are, like two peas in a pod. And it doesn't seem like that's going to change, regardless of what's happened over the last couple of months. So this is when the rumour came around that Horner had effectively gone with some financiers to Uvidya and said, hey, we'll buy Red Bull technology from you. Like, let's just come to an arrangement where Horner can live out his Toto Wolff fantasy where he actually owns the team and, controls it in that sense, and therefore can theoretically be worth a lot more money than he presently isn't. Toto Wolff's a billionaire. Horner is not, because effectively he is an employee of Red Bull. So that, I think, is what is going on here. And if you're Red Bull, if you're Uvidya, who want to actually do this, and you see that as the long-term play, I think his opinion might be, sure, we're going to have this short-term fallout. Verstappen might leave, Marko might leave, whatever. It's going to be chaos in the short term. But in the long run, that might make the most sense of Red Bull in their opinion. He obviously thinks that Horner's the man to take that project forward on his own and build it up again, potentially. Horner, I'm sure, thinks that he's the man to do that, and maybe Nvidia's right to believe so. And if they've made up their minds that that is the plan for Red Bull's Formula One team post Dietrich Mateschitz being around, then I think this will happen, and maybe it's just a matter of time until the consequences play themselves out. And as we saw Gerhard Berger say yesterday, that as it stands, Horner is to stay, potentially for these reasons, and Verstappen is going to go. Now, this goes next level when we start to bring into the story Mr. Mohammed Ben Sulayem. It's crazy how many facets to this story there are, and I'm sure there's way more behind the scenes that we don't presently know. But the introduction of Ben Sulayem into this saga, based on all these allegations behind the scenes, has actually given us more reason to believe that Verstappen to Mercedes might be plausible. So if you guys didn't see it yesterday, Mohammed Ben Sulayem is being investigated for an alleged attempt to interfere in the 2023 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Alonso got a penalty, a 5-second penalty for being outside of his start box positioning. He served the penalty in the pit stop. The rear jackman touched the car just before the 5 seconds was up, and then bang, that was a 10-second penalty applied. That was overturned, and I feel like the majority opinion in the community was, yeah, that's probably fair enough to be overturned. But the rules technically said that if you intervene with the car before the 5 seconds is up, then it's a 10-second penalty. Apparently, Mohammed Ben Sulayem went to the stewards and said, hey, I would highly advise that we change that decision. And I really don't think the president of the FIA should be having the power to do just that, because of course it raises questions what else he might be influencing. And apparently there are other things that he's been trying to influence, such as the Las Vegas Grand Prix. So the same whistleblower that talked about the Fernando Alonso Saudi Arabian Grand Prix story, pretty funny, right, that if you look at races that have been manipulated in whatever way, Alonso has been involved in a couple of them, right? Obviously Crashgate, Singapore 2008, and now this one for, we discussed potential reasons for that yesterday. Today, though, we have another bombshell. I don't know if tomorrow we're going to get another bombshell. Like, is this every single day? Is this whistleblower going to reveal a new Ben Sulayem drama? But this is honestly a big one, really. So they discuss what we said about the Fernando Alonso penalty, but then we have this talk around the Las Vegas Grand Prix. It's been quite clear that there's been a power struggle at Red Bull, and there's been a power struggle between the FIA, the governing body, and Formula One management. Ben Sulayem has been at odds with Formula One themselves on so many things, to such an extent that his position has felt untenable for some time, and I think certainly so after this. So an FIA spokesperson said that from a sporting and safety perspective, the Las Vegas Grand Prix circuit approval followed FIA protocol in terms of inspection and certification. However, the belief was that the whistleblower says, who said this story yesterday, and BBC Sport have said that they've talked to multiple people that have heard the same thing. The whistleblower was told that on the behest of the president to find a way to not pass the circuit safe for racing. So, who on behest of the FIA president instructed him to find some concerns to prevent the FIA from certifying the circuit before the weekend of the race. Going on to say the following, asked to be more specific, he said that issues on the circuit were meant to be artificially identified regardless of their actual existence, with the ultimate goal of withholding the license to hold the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Now, of course, this ended up not happening. The officials were unable to find any concerns, although maybe they should have found the whole drain covers that caused issues for Carlos Sainz. And BBC Sport has learned, this I thought was a fascinating sentence, other officials present at the time have a different recollection of events from the whistleblower. The way that is said sounds like the others, you know what I mean, right? They had a different recollection of events. Come on, let's read between the lines here a little bit. What the BBC Sport are effectively implying, at least to me, is that the whistleblower is possibly telling the truth and the others maybe aren't so willing to discuss what really happened behind the scenes. Or the whistleblower's wrong, which is fair enough, but BBC Sport are saying that no, he's not, because they have other sources backing this up. So, of course, it would be somewhat unclear why Ben Sulayem would be trying to artificially manipulate the Los Angeles Grand Prix into being effectively cancelled, but the belief is that maybe he feels like F1 are gaining too much power. I don't know. That is mad in and of itself. The FIA, by the way, has actually issued a statement on this and said the following: the FIA confirms that the compliance officers received a report detailing potential allegations involving certain members of its governing bodies. The compliance department is assessing these concerns, as is common practice, to ensure that the due process is meticulously followed. But this is when it goes next level. Later down in the article, the following was said by the BBC. He's really discussing here, Andrew Benson, all of the controversies around Mohammed Ben Sulayem, of which there are many. But we heard the rumours now a couple of days ago that Max Verstappen had been asked by Ben Sulayem to publicly defend Christian Horner on this situation. And I thought that was crazy that Ben Sulayem was trying to interfere in that whole side of things. The feeling would be that Ben Sulayem is effectively trying to make this whole thing go away and brush over it and trying to get Max to do his dirty work for him, right? I mean, how wild is that? But we weren't really sure what Max Verstappen had said in response to that. But the Telegraph say, and obviously the BBC reporting on it as well, that after Red Bull's three-time champ Max Verstappen twice failed to give Horner unqualified backing in a press conference, Ben Sulayem approached him, but Verstappen, BBC Sport has been told, responded by saying Ben Sulayem should launch his own inquiry into the matter. So, wow, if that's true, and BBC are saying that it's true, then Verstappen basically said to Mr. FIA President, hey, sir, I'm not going to say what you want me to say. How about you look into this whole story? And maybe he says that not really thinking much of it, but let's be honest, the implication is that Verstappen thinks that whatever's going on behind the scenes with Horner is at least valid. And whether this is again related to the investigation that was done, the transgressive behaviour stuff, and it's wild for, it's unfortunate, I would say, for the women involved in that, based on what we believe occurred from the leaks and everything that's happened, that that story has been thrown under the rug so much because the focus of this whole thing in the first place, it wasn't really ever about her, as unfortunate as that is. It's about the power struggle at Red Bull. But again, the implication is here, if what Verstappen has said is true, is that he effectively believes that Horner is also not fit for purpose in that role, in the same way that his father, Jos Verstappen, absolutely does, because Jos made that very clear to the public the other day. So all of the drama with Ben Sulayem behind the scenes also implies that Verstappen elsewhere is an option. And, a couple of days ago, I said that I give it a 2% chance. Yesterday, I said I give Verstappen to Mercedes a 30% chance. Today, having read up on this whole Horner ownership, taking the team out of Red Bull GmbH and being its own entity, makes me feel like the chances are now like 60%. I know that it's going up every day, but I genuinely feel like this is now more likely than not that Verstappen and Red Bull part ways. There was also apparently, just to add yet more fuel to the fire, because we've been doing a lot of that, Christian Horner met up with Max's representative, so his agent basically, in Dubai on Monday to try and iron out these tensions. Now, apparently a source said the talks went well, but neither Jos nor his son were there. Verstappen's manager was acting on the Dutch driver's behalf. So apparently Horner and effectively Verstappen's manager agent had a conversation to try and help the situation. But I mean, look, Horner's having these conversations. He ain't going anywhere, man. It just doesn't seem like Horner's going anywhere. And if the Verstappens have made their mind up that Horner is not in their best interest in the team for whatever reason that might potentially be, it feels like a change is inevitable, especially when you also can justify a Verstappen move elsewhere, especially if they lose the Ford partnership. If Red Bull departs from the main organisation, a lot would change. Marco is going to go probably if Verstappen goes, almost certainly actually. Maybe Adrian Newey goes. That's been a big rumour as well, that if the whole Red Bull thing breaks down, Newey's probably gone. And Mark Hughes is saying that this is the beginning of the end for Red Bull. In the way that it currently stands, it doesn't matter if Horner goes, it doesn't matter if Max goes, but the feeling is that one or the other will go. So whatever side you take on what Red Bull will do, the other one is more than likely going to be gone as it stands. And that means that the dynasty, effectively, that this energy drink company has built over the last several years will be coming to an end at some point. Will they still dominate in general and win by 20 seconds? More than likely, yes. But that does not spell the picture of this situation right now. And even Toto Wolff is basically saying that I'm not in a hurry to take a decision for the drivers. He is absolutely going to buy his time and see what happens here with this whole Verstappen situation and see if they can actually potentially get that deal done. So it's absolute madness. I do kind of feel for George Russell if this occurs as well, right? Because let's be honest here, this guy, he joined Mercedes probably expecting Hamilton to have, 2 more years in him maybe. Then Russell would be the number one driver to take Mercedes and start winning championships. Hamilton's going to do 3 years at Mercedes, and then Hamilton might leave to Ferrari, and Verstappen comes in. And it's an incredibly interesting time in Formula 1 because Mercedes, at least according to Lewis Hamilton, seem to be on a downhill trajectory. He's not said that publicly, but let's be honest, leaving to Ferrari makes you think that he's not as confident in Mercedes as he once was, and he's probably right to think so based on the way the last couple of years have gone. Red Bull seem to be on the cliff edge where things are going to start going downhill from here, and I think it's bringing people's memories back of a time where Formula 1 was Ferrari versus McLaren, and I don't know, I think in 2026 there's legitimate possibility that's the case again. So very much intrigued your thoughts in the comment section below. As I say, hopefully I've done a good job today breaking everything down because a lot is happening lately. So yeah, thanks for watching as always. Subscribe if you're new, all that good stuff. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.